GSA is a wealth of information, and a lot of people, are you all familiar with the GSA and kind of what it is? It's like the mini mall, really, for the government. That's the best way to describe it. GSA was created, and it's actually one of the agencies that is more self-supported because there are fees that the government pays in order to contract people off of GSA schedule. So it's almost like a sales tax report is how it's best for me to share. And so if you are on GSA, you will be doing a report on a quarterly basis that says, you know, here is how many contracts that I confirmed through GSA, and so you would then take this fee out and write a check to the government, but it's money that's paid additional to what they would pay you according to what your prices are. They then put the funding fee on top of that, but it's your responsibility on GSA to then pay it to GSA. But that's how it's supported, just so you have a little background and understand. So it really is like a mini mall because you will be pre-negotiating a contract before you get on schedule. You actually negotiate on the front side, and then once you've come to terms, they accept you and award you a GSA schedule. And the GSA schedule then can be renewed every 5 years. So you can be on GSA if you're active and you're producing off of GSA up to 20 years. So it's a wonderful contract if that's something that is a good avenue of how they buy your services. So we're going to go through 3 key areas on GSA that you can still get a lot of information. Even if you're not interested in getting on the GSA, there's a lot of information you'll find out on who's buying your product, who your competitors are, et cetera. Okay? So we'll just start right now with the eLibrary. That's one of the first places that you would go in order to understand what your schedule, because that's what the contracts are through GSA. They're all schedules. And so if you come into the GSA library at first, you can type in keywords here. You could also just look at a general category down below. You can also, if you already know a schedule number, if you're in IT and somebody keeps telling you, you know, that's Schedule 70, Schedule 70, Schedule 70, well, then you can just go up and put in Schedule 70, okay? And so the other thing that I want to point out on this eLibrary page, right down here under additional information, vendor support services. GSA is the most help to small businesses, and people really just don't, small business owners really don't realize how much training you can get through GSA. So this vendor support services down at the bottom is pretty key. Takes you right, it's to the center, I'm sorry, vendor support center, but it actually is something that gives you all the training, including the magic pathway to success that we were talking about. If you're going to get on GSA schedule, you must complete Pathways to Success. That is just a requirement by GSA. And so it's a really fabulous training. I actually retake it at least once a year myself, just to see if anything's changed. Usually it hasn't, but it's amazing because it's such a wealth of information, how many things you pick up, you know, terms and acronyms and, you know, those kinds of things where it's explained. Maybe it's not something specific to your industry, so you've heard it a lot, but you really don't follow what it is. So the Pathways to Success I recommend to everybody. That one does take a little bit longer. That can take up to 4 hours, but you can do it in segments. You don't have to do it all at once, okay? And you will get a little certificate at the end. And of course, if you were going to do GSA schedule, that's what you would be providing them. So you know how the government does like their certificates, though. So there are a lot of other things on there that may be a party to your industry that would be of help. But basically, I wanted you to see this because of the Pathways to Success. So we're coming back to the eLibrary now. Temporary staffing is what I put in there again. And so that's going to show you what the schedule is, and then it's going to also show you what they call the SIN numbers, which are the special identification numbers for the particular part of that schedule. So as you can see with staffing, it's broken it down into administrative and clerical, data processing services, and as you scroll on down, they're specific to accounting, et cetera. So that is the special identity numbers that you're looking for that are specific identities to it. So I did click on the top one here because I wanted you then to see, that's when you get the list of vendors that are already on schedule. This is where you start getting the information again on your competitors and pricing. And this is going to give you a lot more information on pricing than any other website that I'm showing you today. So any of the names over there you can click on, and you can go directly to their page, which is going to show this information in detail about them. Again, it gives information about connecting to their website. It does give contact information if this is of interest to you to reach out to establish a network with. But down here, you've got the View Catalog side. And if you click on that, you actually will pull up their catalog, which is going to show their prices. Okay? The GSA requires anyone who is a schedule holder to be offering the government the absolute best price that they offer commercially on a regular basis. Okay? So you're going to get the government prices, at least of that competitor. Everything you see here is pretty generic to all schedule holders because the catalog is made up of the information that is put into the schedule to a certain extent. So you'll start out understanding what the contract period is and everything for that. Then as you continue to scroll down, and they're most all of them on the service side PDF, which is really great. On the product side, you're going to see that they're a little bit different. It is like shopping on Amazon to a certain extent. But as you scroll down, you can see this is where you start to get the pricing. Okay? GSA Advantage, this is where you would go, and this is where I'm going to show you the product search as well, but we're going to start with services, the same thing we just did, only this time advertising and marketing was the top one. I just clicked on it so that you could see you're going to get basically the same information, just, you know, a bigger list, you know, a little more information. You click on the company, you would still get the breakdown of that particular vendor's information that I just showed you. And again, it's going to take you directly, if you hit the View Catalog over here, you've got View Contractor information or Contractor Product. If you click on that, you'll get their catalog again. Okay? And so then I went into the product side, just so you can see. As I said, it's a little more like Amazon. And so I typed in a Dell Latitude computer because at the time I was doing this, that's what I was working on. You could already tell it was outdated because it already said, are you sure? These are the only computers that we have. So, you know, it did offer me a did you mean as, but it didn't matter. I wanted you just to see that it's showing different vendors that are providing computer equipment, as well as the prices and their delivery information. And it also gives you an option to compare prices. Okay? So if it's a product that you have, this is the side that you'd be looking at too. Okay? So any questions on that? Because like I said, that one is the most, I use the GSA a lot because you get a lot more really meaty information on your competitors. Okay? And it's pretty easy to use as well. Finally, on GSA, there is the schedule sales query that they have. And this is a way of finding out who is actively doing work. I mean, you can narrow down the search. If you don't recognize any competitors that were in that initial list, then you could maybe do a sales query, because what you really want to look at is who really is actively selling to the government and narrow it down from that point. And so that's where you would come to your sales query. You don't have to fill out the first one where it asks your name and stuff. All they're doing is tracking how many people are going through and utilizing this. They're not going to use it for any reason. But after I fill it out once, I usually just on every other time hit proceed so that it just moves on to the next screen. So you don't have to fill that out. These are all the reports available to you. The one that I use the most to get you that general information, and you'll see what the report looks like, is number 10. However, I want to tell you, if you want to know what all the rest of these do, just click the little circle to the side and then ask it to view a sample. And that example is going to show you what to expect out of that report. Because there are a couple of others on here that I will use, but usually that's only drilling it down for a particular client who might be saying, should I get on schedule or shouldn't I? So I will take a couple of other reports, put them together so we can determine if it's of value. Okay? So when we go on to schedule or to report number 10, it does want to know your schedule number, so you'll have to have that from the eLibrary. I know the one we're looking for the temp help is 736. We're just staying with that same theme. You can do up to the last 3 years in searches. And so, you know, I actually think they allow you to go back 5 still, but I do know that they've been talking about, you know, 3 years at this point in time. So I believe that's really the information I want anyway. I don't want it to go back too much further than that. I want it a lot more current. And that last 12 months is the most important to me usually. But I do typically do at least 3 years so I can have a comparison, because you can also see if somebody was the top seller last year, maybe they weren't the year before or the year before, or maybe they had 0 sales. They might be somebody that you'd want to talk to about mentoring you because they figured something out that was working, okay? So you can see how people progress and develop. I, again, like this one in an Excel spreadsheet because how you can sort. So I am always asking for it to create it that way. It does come up and tell you approximately how long it's going to take. And then it will give you the option down here to download that report. Or just save it if you want to just do a whole bunch of them and then come back and view them later. This is the report in Excel. And as you can see, and on these particular reports, it's the total sales that I will go in and have it sort itself to. Because all the zeros, I don't even care about. You know, you want to start to see who are the top performers, if it's somebody that you're looking to see who's an active competitor of yours, okay? And again, that's the way that you would find out, you know, if there's somebody that you maybe could get to mentor. The beauty of some of this is that if you're in an industry in Colorado, what I have found to be very true through my entire small business career is that I can get someone who's in another state who is not doing anything in the state of Colorado to mentor me in my same industry without an issue. I have usually never had a problem, but you got to reach out to them and you got to get the right person. So, you know, this is a good way to research that as well and say, you know, here's somebody in Virginia that does what I do. Or you may even look, there was one time in particular that I was looking for a specific market that was similar to Colorado. So you look at other states that have similar economies and so forth, and that's the one that I would pursue. And of course, if they're doing business in Colorado, not real likely, but if they don't care about doing business outside of Virginia or Cincinnati or wherever they are, they're usually pretty open to talking to you about what their experiences have been. Okay, so good little rule of thumb there if you're trying to get some extra research in. So that really was the 3 key areas on GSA that you have to get used to if in doing any sort of pre-research or staying on top of your market is really those 3 key areas, okay? So now we're going to move into the website that I said is really not too user-friendly. So this one is a little bit more complex, but a tremendous amount of information because the government must report now to the FPDS group, their internet site, any awards that are out there. So what you're going to find through this website is that it's only summary information up to that $25,000 mark. But then you get very specific for $25,000 or more. You'll get really specific information on that particular contract. So if you're getting summary, you know they probably went about purchasing it off of a credit card or blanket purchase order or something, or GSA even. That's all going to be that general information that we're talking about. But The specific is who, what, where, when, all of that information. And you'll see a screen here of my Excel spreadsheet when we're all done with this that shows you all the details that you're going to get. So on this particular website, the home page, you would have to register again, free registration. You then have to utilize that to access it, but they do have some easy search stuff that you can do. It's just really generic reports. Small business goaling, you can type that in, you'll get this generic report on how did they do, you know, in 2013, 2012, et cetera. There are some other items that you'd want to look around and see what's current on there. So again, spend a little time on their home webpage. We logged in under my login so that you could see it, and I can walk you through it. So this is the first page you would get to no matter who you were as a vendor, okay? So they do have standard reports. Again, if you click on that, it's going to bring up whatever they know is standardly searched on a regular basis. But ad hoc reports is what I'm about to walk you through, because you can build a template of your own. Now, is that something that's really easy? No, but I will tell you that one of the easier cheat places on this one is to, on the home page before you've even gone in and logged in, if you go to this help screen, it really is going to give you more items to the side that, and it's really like the top 3 or 4 that you're going to spend your time looking at in order to understand more about the reports. And that's really, I think that's like the second or third option you have. And if you say, you know, more information about the reports, it brings up a little box that says who, what, when, where, and you can click on any of those, and it will detail how you would want to fill out the template for the ad hoc report. And the other thing that I will offer is, once we've walked through this today, I had built this template to give some pretty general information, but also detailed more for small businesses. If you want to know how I built that template, I can send that to you in an email, because it's something that is, you're not going to be able to see all the screens today, okay? So back to our home screen, once you get into it, we're going to go into the ad hoc report. This is the one that I told you I built the template on. And so it does ask you about certain metrics to the side. And on this particular one, I wanted information on contracts for the base and all options that they would have. So if it's a 2-year initial contract with renewable 1 year for another 3, so it's a total of 5, I wanted to know all of it. Okay, so that's really what I was trying to get with that information, if that makes sense. And then anything that is any actions that would happen if they have to amend it, if they had to cancel it, if they had to do any of those kinds of things, I wanted to know what all actions were taking place with that. This one is the one that is a pretty long list. There's about 16 or 17 different attributes that I put in there, and that's why it would have to come to you in an email, because I can't show that to you all on the screen. And so I did ask it to prompt values, because there were, with some of these attributes, you can just ask it to prompt. In other words, I had it prompt for a state code. I had it prompt for an industry code. And that way, for me, I can change it. You wouldn't have to prompt if you're looking specifically for your industry all the time. But you may want to prompt for a state, okay? So when we get over here and it's asking for the filters there, there's going to be a time, because then I can say I want it for 2011, 2012, whatever. I can put in the specific years. And then the filters that we just went over, which you're going to see, actually, that's as many of the attributes as will show on my screen, which is, again, why I would email the list to you. But you can see that I wanted the solicitation ID. The reason I want that is because if I have that, I can go back to FedBizOpps and I can actually pull up the archived solicitation to read more about what the specifics were, okay? Effective date of the contract itself, then we have industry codes, we have the estimated completion date is on there. That's something that I want to know as well, because that's going to tell me, again, this contract's up in another year, I better get busy and start working with this agency to see if this is something they're going to relet and get to know them better. Industry codes, I want to know what the extent is it's competed. If you are in any socioeconomic certification program yourself, you want to know what extent it's competed, because that might be another option for you if you know that you're a woman-owned or a veteran-owned business that is capable of this and it wasn't competed that way. You might then put the request in. Next time this was a small business set-aside, could we discuss having it veterans? Could we have it, that's how they get 8As to do the sole sourcing as well, is by looking over to say, this contract's coming up again. I know there's enough to compete it if you put it out strictly to veterans or HUBZone or whatever, okay? So you do want to know the extent competed. Other than full and open competition lets you know how it was awarded and how they found the vendor. That's going to tell you if it was a blanket purchase order. That's going to tell you if it was a micro purchase or a credit card or something to that effect. Type of set-aside, small business, veteran-owned, woman-owned, those kinds of things. And then if it was created via, these are all things that are still leading up to showing you kind of the same information. Created via meaning, was it, again, an open proposal, or was it a blanket purchase agreement? Was it a sole source? Was it whatever? So it's kind of the same information you would get above, but not necessarily. So that's why, you may decide this is too much for you, but at least it gives you a basic starting place. And then it goes down as far as the contractor's name. On the next page that comes up when I told it to run the report, this is where it's asking for the attributes that I said there were 5 of. You've got the industry codes, you've got the dates that it was signed. So this is the sign date between January and December, gives you that full year, or you can do it November to November, October to whatever. And so then you have your NAICS code, principal place of performance you can put in there as a state, and then of course your other dates that you've got down here. This is actually a date signed most likely for amendments. You'll see this in the attribute list, but that's why there's 2 date sources. Any amendments I also wanted to be included, so that's why there's a second date here. And then this is your last modified date, okay? It gave you that screen telling you it's searching. This is the initial table that you're going to see. As you can see, there are 16 pages involved in this report again. So that's another reason why I like it in Excel spreadsheet, is because you can sort around it, but you can also condense the information down if you want to. So this page here, actually, as you're scrolling down from that table, you'd scroll down and you'll see that it's asking how you want this and if you want it exported. So there is Microsoft Excel as the option. You can also have it as a PDF if you want to. And then if you scroll on down, you hit the submit button and it will send it and export it out to your Excel. So this is the sheet from all that I just showed you. You can see the solicitation, the effective dates, the estimated completion, all of that information. A lot of these were full and open competition, but you can scroll and find out if there were other ways that it was competed. If it was not other than full and open, there is a column. They don't always fill that out. So, it's not that it's the greatest, but when they do, it's wonderful. It does show type of set-aside, service-disabled vet, small business, etc. And then you also have, if it's no set-aside, here's your award type. You've got definitive contracts, you've got delivery orders. As you go on down, you can find it, blanket purchase orders, all of those kinds of things. Micro purchase agreements, contractor's name and information and the vendor state that they're in. This does give sometimes an idea as to why it wasn't awarded to a small business, and it's usually because they couldn't find enough competition. Principal place of performance, the contracting office name now. Now we're getting into the agency information. And then the DUNS number for the vendor. And then here is the magic number you want, which is the contract value. Okay. Now, what you're going to find is that it may have that same contract listed 4 or 5 times with different values, because this is as they paid. And sometimes you'll even see a negative because that was an amount that was overcharged on that particular contract or whatever. So, this is why you want the Excel too, because you can go and narrow it down to that one particular contract, delete everything else, and come over and have the total contract values to date. Okay? So a wealth of information, as we discussed. Going to jump on into forecasting because I know we're getting really close here, and that's why if I'm moving too fast, just make notes and we'll handle questions at the end. Acquisition Central Agency Procurement Forecast does allow you to see certain agencies. They're just not all in there sometimes. So then you would want to go to the specific agency website, and you can do that with just simple Google searches of doing business with Department of Energy or whatever. And then you can usually find on their page, and we'll kind of show you a page where they have doing small business assistance, or it's usually right on their main menu as to how you could get in there and find out more information. Not all of them will list their forecasting. Okay, so most of them do, but it's not a given that they all do. Okay, so this is the Acquisition Central. These are the drop-down boxes you have. And I always go into that small business information because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who has a specific page for small business and how do you work with this particular agency. Department of Energy is one of them that was on the drop-down box, so that's the one I chose just to give you. And so it takes me to their small business forecasting site on Department of Energy's. And over to the side, you can see that you can do searches in different ways, by state, by industry code, contracting activity. I mean, I usually, it's the top two that for a general search, that's what you're going to be looking for, okay? So I believe the first one I did was state, and it was. So it gives you all the states that they currently are looking to forecast in. Click on Colorado. It gave you a drop-down list of what their forecast was looking like for the next year. There were going to be 5 contracts they were looking at for the state of Colorado. Click on one of them, and it gives you more of the information as to what the particulars and specifics of that particular contract is going to be. Every website for every agency is going to look a little bit different. They're not all the same template, but you can usually get most of this information off of all of them, and it's through clicking on the links that they're giving you, okay? So on this particular one, this, it was updated, shows the date that it was updated, and it gives you more information on any details that it's looking for. And I was trying to see, if you scroll on down, it usually gives you, if there is somebody who's staying on top of this, it will give you their contact information. This particular one is not showing that right now. Oh, here we do. It's showing you who the current contractor is, so right there is also information that was brought up in the question earlier. How do you know if this is going to be relet? Well, the forecast right here is telling you, because you have an incumbent right now. So you know that that contract is coming up again, and that there is already somebody in place. So you can also do some research then now specifically on who has that contract to see if you can find out a little more information from that FPDS site that I just showed you. You can see if you can find out what that contract went for at that point, okay? It was a set aside for small business and still is planned on being, and this one is actually a fixed price, indefinite quantity type contract that's coming up, okay? But down here is points of contact with WAPA itself. So WAPA.gov, you now have a person that you can start building a relationship with. And that's who you want to get in touch with, try and do a capability interview, get your capability statement to them, find out how often you can keep in touch with them, because, they're very busy people too, but that way, it takes it from you thinking you have to get in touch with them monthly if you just lay that out on the table. Is it all right if I reach out to you in an email or by phone in a couple of months? Or, would you be okay if I checked in with you because we're getting kind of close to this on a monthly basis? Just clear it with them to start with, okay? This is the NAICS option that you've got, so you could scroll down and find a particular industry code of yours just to see if there's any forecasting. And so that was basically, you'd get the same information that I had shown you. I did give you, and I know this is in your handouts as well, this is kind of a top 10 agencies that do really try to go overboard working with the small business owners. So key areas about that. The other one is the Pikes Peak Library, which this library is the most amazing one across the country. I don't know if you have had a chance yet to tour it completely. I believe there's going to be the opportunity to tour it.
4:30 today, I believe Will be here, and he will be happy to take anyone for a tour.
So we will have plenty of time for that. So that is perfect. So it's something that you really have to see, because this is really like a mini executive suite to any business owner. It's the most, I travel a lot, and I've been to a lot of libraries, and I have not seen the amount of support that you have in this one facility right now. So, you know, you've got the little meeting areas out here, et cetera, but also their research, the business desk that is over there right as you walk out is full of information as to helping you research things on your own. If you can't find something and you go over to whoever is manning that desk at this point in time, they can certainly help you. They do a monthly class that is Minding Your Business. I, again, take that class at least once a year, because the electronic resources that are available to us here in our library district, they're phenomenal. And I tend to think, I have clients all over the state, and so I'll be someplace else and I'll think, oh yeah, you could get a hold of the library and you could check this resource, and they don't all have those resources. We are really blessed to have that here. It's amazing what our library has for us. So utilize it, because again, this is all free services because of, you know, your property taxes or your library cards that you're paying for. Use these services. And Will O'Hearn, who will be leading the tour, as well as Terry Zarsky, who's she's offices out of the Penrose Library. And she is an amazing resource for small businesses as well. And she actually heads the research and the information group for the library. So definitely you need to check what is available to you that way as well. Finally, I just kind of want to briefly go over some idea of how the government purchases. As we said, it could be that it's not going to be out there on FedBizOpps because it's not, you know, a larger contract. And so you do have the GSA, which is the multi-award schedule, which is that mini mall that we were talking about. Then in an open market acquisition, you've got what are known as the simplified purchasing procedures. Many of us heard of these the first time if you were not a vendor with the government back with Katrina, the credit card purchasing that they had, and they bumped the amount up that some of them are able to do. Well, I can tell you that in the government, the longer that you have been with an agency, your amount that you can purchase on a credit card will be bumped up a little as it is. Now with Katrina, it got bumped up to like $25,000, and then they realized that was a big mistake, so they, you know, stopped that. But most micro purchasing credit cards can be utilized at least anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. But there are some that can go as high as $5,000 and even up to $10,000. So there are avenues of, if you have a relationship that you have built with an agency that really wants to use your services, they really will go out of their way to try and help you figure out how can we do this so that you're the one that gets the contract, okay? Government purchase card, micro purchase, those are both the same scenario with the wire transfers as well as the credit card. Then we have the blanket purchase agreements, and that I kind of briefly had gone over in regards to the fact that you could do up to $100,000 because you could have this open blanket purchase agreement. And the beauty of those is that if you actually have one out there, and it's with Department of Energy, and they've only used $50,000 out of it, but it was really for a total of $100,000, and another agency is looking for your services, and they see that that BPA is out there and it's not expired yet, they can contact Department of Energy and say, are you going to use this because I really need this service, so can I contract $5,000 or $10,000 of their services through your BPA? So they can share, okay? And then, of course, you really want to know the federal acquisition regulations. That's why I'm giving you the Part 13. You don't need to read the whole 600-page volume, but you really do need to know the key areas on a contract. When they refer to a FAR, go and read those very, very carefully to make sure that you're not going to have any issues supporting that contract. Then, of course, sealed bidding, which is the FedBizOpps style, where everybody puts the proposal out. Nobody knows what anybody else's proposal is about. And then your negotiated procurements are various, it's through the contracting, the micro purchase, but it's also through those relationships. And that's why I can't stress relationships enough with them. And ultimately, for all of us who are small business owners, we usually start with a subcontract.